Okay, so for number 11, you're given that the volume of the cone is 400 pi centimeters cubed and its diameter is 20 centimeters. You want to find the height and slant height and total surface area of the cone. Okay? So in order to do that, we want to start with what they give us, which is the volume. So we're going to start with the volume formula. 1/3 pi r squared h. This is a cone, not a sphere. We're back to cones. So 400 pi equals 1/3 pi r squared. We know that the radius is 10 because they give us the diameter is 20. So times 10 times the height. And the height's what we're solving for. Pi is on both sides, so cross it out. Divide both sides by 1/3 10 squared. And again, you can put that whole thing into your calculator. So you can take 400 divided by, use parentheses. You need a double parenthesis, the one parenthesis for the 1/3, and then times 10 squared and end it. Okay, if you want to simplify each part, you can, but again, it's just easier to put in one string into your calculator than to try and simplify it part by part. Press enter, and you will get that your height, I'm explaining where the parentheses are, is 12. So your height for this cylinder, or cone, I'm sorry, is 12. Okay? So I'm done with the height. Now I'm going to move on to the slant height. Again, if I were to draw a picture of what this cone would look like, I already found my height as being 12. And now I also know that my radius is 10, so what kind of triangle? This is back to the first page. Right triangle, so use Pythagorean theorem. 12 squared plus 10 squared equals your slant height squared. So 144 plus 100 equals your slant height squared. 244 equals L squared. Take the square root of both sides. And L equals the square root of 244. Now, you can simplify the square root of 244. Okay, you can divide out a 4 from that, and you get the square root of 4 times the square root of 61. So you would want to write square root of 4 times square root of 61, which is 2 root 61. That's your slant height. And then finally for the surface area, I would want to use my formula for surface area of a cone and simplify, and I would be left with pi times 100 plus 20 root 61. Alright, and then to find the volume of this figure, you're finding actually the volume of a cone and the volume of a cylinder. So the volume formula for the cone is 1/3 pi r squared h, and the volume formula for the cylinder is pi r squared h. I'm going to add the two together once I'm done because I want the composite volume. So now I'm going to plug in the numbers for each of the problems. So I have 1/3 pi times the radius of the cone, which is 2. It's also the radius of the cylinder. And the height of the cone is 7. Now going over to the cylinder, the radius is still 2, but the height of the cylinder is 5. So now I'm going to simplify. I'm going to simplify 1/3 times 2 squared times 7. And again, you can use your calculator to do that. 1/3 times 2 squared times 7. Again, you get a number that's a decimal, so put it into a fraction, which is 28/3 pi, plus 2 squared times 5 is 20 pi. I'm going to add 28/3 and 20 together. So I'm going to take 28/3, which is already in my calculator, and just add to that 20. Again, I get a decimal and hit my math and put the answer to a fraction and get 88/3 pi. And that is in centimeters cubed because I was looking for volume. Alright, moving on to 13 and 14. For number 13, I want to find the total surface area of this solid, which means I also want to include the new area created from the missing center. Alright, so essentially I'm looking for the surface area of the entire figure, but I have to take out those 2 holes, but then add in the 4 rectangular surfaces on the inside. So this is, I'm going to be calculating, taking out, and then adding in. So first of all, I'm going to use 2 times the area of the base plus the perimeter times the height of the prism. I'm going to take out the 2 holes. My 2 holes are 1 by 1, so 1 times 1 is 1. And then I have another one, so 1 plus 1. And then I'm going to add in 4 rectangular regions. Each of those regions are 7 inches by 1 inch. So 7 times 1 plus 7 times 1, or 1 times 7, plus 1 times 7, plus 1 times 7, which is actually just 7 times 4. Okay, so let's fill in the first part. The area of my base of the prism is 3 by 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. The perimeter is 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, or 12, times the height is 7. That is the height of the prism, which is the area between, the length between the bases. Then I'm going to take out 1 plus 1, which is 2, and add in 7 times 4, which is 28. So let's go ahead and calculate 2 times 9 plus 12 times 7. It gives me 102. Now I have to subtract out 2 and add in 28, and I get 128 inches squared. Alright, moving on to number 14, which is actually the last one because 15 and 16, the ratios we're not going to be doing on our unit test. So for number 14, I have the volume of the hourglass, which means I'm actually going to be, I had 2 holes that are in shapes of cones that are drilled out. So I'm excluding those. I don't need those. So I'm going to first calculate the volume of the cylinder. The volume of the cylinder is pi r squared h. And then 2, I'm going to have to take out 2 of the cones. So 2 times 1/3 pi r squared h. And I'm going to fill in what I know. Pi, the radius, is half of 8, which is 4. So 4 squared times the height of the cylinder, which is 12. Subtract out 2 times 1/3 pi r squared, which is 4 again, but the height of the cones is half that of the cylinder. So if it's 12, then I take half, and those are 6. And I have 2 of them. Okay? So now I need to simplify. 4 squared times 12 is 192 pi. Minus 2 times 1/3 times 4 squared times 6. You're going to multiply all those together, and you're going to get 64 pi. So 192 pi minus 64 pi is 128 pi, and that is in centimeters cubed. And that is your answer. In case you're curious about number 15 and 16, you don't have to do them, but for number 15, your ratios of the sides is going to be 5 to 7. And let me clarify that 5 because it kind of ended up looking a little funny with my pen. So again, that is 5 to 7. And then for number 16, it's going to be 15 to 11. All right, happy studying. See you guys on Monday.